Now more than ever, protecting our Constitution against the political elites is essential in saving our nation. Their attack on our constitutional rights and freedoms must be stopped. It's time to speak up and speak out. The voice of freedom for the majority will be silent no more. Welcome. This is Truth. Now here's your host, Katherine Daigle.
Welcome to Truth. I am your host, Katherine Daigle. Tonight I'll be discussing our children that are being indoctrinated in our public schools. Today, the war for our children's minds is being waged, and teachers' unions, school boards, administrators, and even our politicians, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are moving fast and pushing to make critical race theory the default foundation for all education in America. Groups of concerned parents, teachers, students around the country are organizing resistance to this Marxist teaching style and learning aids called CRT, seeking resolutions to have it banned from our public schools. There are highly regarded school boards around the country that have approved a resolution to prohibit the implementation of critical race theory and the 1619 Project. There are many states in the union that have decided that they will not allow this critical race theory to be taught in their schools. However, my state of California is encouraging this decisive race baiting in our schools. It has happened so fast, one can only imagine the effect it is going to have on our children. Parents everywhere have had enough. Critical race theory is a discriminatorial racial tactic to divide and conquer American schools, beginning with our children as young as 5 years old. We as parents and educators need action and the moral fiber. We need to come together strong, have the strength and determination to educate and inspire our own children without these racial equity language. Cancel culture is getting worse with the increased power of Black Lives Matter movement. People and organizations are being investigated, fact-checked, or losing their jobs for criticizing BLM. This cancel culture has nothing to do with criticism or even debate, and everything to do with silencing the opposition. So there is absolutely no debate. How quickly time passes. There cannot be many Americans under the age of 45 who have the faintest idea of what communism was like in practice. And so Marxism is making a comeback. And just like the people described by Machiavelli, who keep falling for the empty promises of usurpers, no matter how many times they've been deceived by them, we as Americans, rather than appreciate the benefits that their free governments afford them, even if no government can entirely eliminate such evils as poverty, illness, prejudice, or police misconduct, they continue to be baffled by the senseless stupidity being sold to them by Marxists known as BLM. Here in Orange County, California, some of our school districts, especially the District of Irvine, here where I live, have adopted this new curriculum that teaches children to categorize and judge themselves and others by their race. It is an extremist ideological curriculum that exacerbates racism and vitiates Martin Luther King's dream that our children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Whatever its objectives, this curriculum has no place in our kindergarten through 12th grade schools. All it does, it teaches our children that mediocrity is a myth. Their race determines what they will achieve in life, and that freedom of confident action is there for just a small number of people. It even includes a privileged power scale by which children rank themselves and presumably others, with the first question assigning the maximum number of diverse points based on the child's race and gender. And this is just the beginning. After I petitioned and received public records, the school district has slowly trickled out a handful of emails revealing how deep this hatred really goes. In fact, the emails also revealed that the school district used taxpayer dollars to contract with Dr. Cherokee Hawley, whose pricey and provocative seminars were stopped in another school in Florida after generating controversy and potentially encouraging people to shame one another publicly. Dr. Hawley has trained over 150,000 educators and worked in 2,000 classrooms. He's an opportunist and a race demagogue, along with Miss IJEOMA Aluo. She has infamously declared that our police forces were created to control Americans of color, quote, unquote, that America is a blood-soaked racist country and that white male identity is in a very dark place. They also concluded that all Trump supporters are white supremacists, so I believe we know where they're coming from. District officials, for example, invited teachers to join their book club, studying the writings of Miss Aluo. The following is from her 2017 publication, So You Want to Fight White Supremacy. White supremacy has been woven into the fabric of our nation from the moment that white settlers decided that their claim to the land was more important than the lives of indigenous people. The white supremacy we are seeing in the streets right now is not just Nazism, and to label it as such is erosive. Yes, there are definitely neo-Nazis marching among the ranks of white supremacists. These white supremacists draw a lot of inspiration from Hitler and the monstrous acts that Nazis committed. This is not a new problem. She states this is America. This is unbelievable. In the meantime, parents and organizations around the country are gearing up to stop this critical race theory. One of the oldest chapters of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance recently lambasted CRT as a hateful, divisive, manipulative fraud. The Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism has similarly decried such curriculum as a cynical, intolerant orthodoxy that pits us against one another and diminishes what it means to be human. Others have described it, for example, as disempowering, divisive, and ill-suited to helping students of color succeed in school. I don't understand this. This is America. In 1 year's time, in less than 1 year's time, they've completely eroded our public schools all around the country. People all over the world are clamoring to come through our open borders as their last hope for their families leaving their socialist regimes. I just don't understand why this new administration, these liberal Democrats, these new socialists in this country are forcing this upon our children. There has been countless videos have gone viral of parents taking a stand against school boards that have adopted this. The tide is certainly turning against CRT propaganda, but I don't think it's turning quite fast enough. Here in Orange County, Capistrano Unified School District tried to adopt a similar curriculum, euphemistically termed cultural proficiency curriculum. Sounds like a hidden agenda to me. But after publicizing the draft curriculum for parents for advance to review and comment, they faced so much blowback and embarrassment that they had to scrap it and find a better alternative. Good for them. To be sure, there are many options for curricula that foster inclusion, empathy, and tolerance, but this extreme indoctrination is not one of them, and to the contrary, will only foster division and hate. I urge you to write my Irvine School Board, the IUSD, Irvine Unified School District, Paul Bokata, Ira Glaske, Lauren Brooks, Sharon Wallen, Cyril Yu. They signed the BLM contract to propose this particular propaganda in our schools in Irvine. Vote them out for embracing this neo-racist curriculum. We need to pay attention as parents. My child went to IUSD. She graduated, went on to a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and recently her MD degree. Irvine Unified School District was one of the best school districts in the country 25 years ago. We've come this far only to tragically destroy our children's minds. This year will go down in history as the beginning of the Democrat Party going full socialist collectively. Since the November 2020 election, the Democrats, media, and social media tech giants have a new totalitarian regime against our capitalist economy that has been subjected to stringent government controls on we the people's freedom. The newly formed administration has crafted policies of aggressive xenophobia under the guise of racism. This has permeated our democracy with propaganda, indoctrination, and consumerism, and within our educational system, with the acceptance and funding of corporate America. The current administration and the Democrat Party need this movement now at any cost. Their time is limited. Things are moving at a much quicker pace, and they do not have the luxury of a timetable because their plan was interrupted. We are now at the precipice. The Biden administration, Democrats, Rhino Republicans, Black Lives Matter, and influential teachers union are intentionally race baiting to encourage division. They detest America. They detest heterosexuals. They detest Christians and patriotic conservatives, but mostly they hate Trump. It is not just corporate America anymore. These tech giants are buying the political machines to launch their influences with their propaganda on our children. We are fighting a battle for our children, and they are confronting our families with propaganda. This is a propaganda war with disinformation and untruths. It's time for the truth. Their racism is echoed in the BLM movement with Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. that has embraced this socialism agenda. It is consuming not only American corporations, but our educational system through the all-powerful teachers union activism. You know, one of my favorite people to listen to is Mark Levin. He encourages parents to get tactical and become more litigious to combat the dangerous ideologies of overtaking their children's schools. So I think lawsuits are the perfect way that these Democrats and socialists understand where it really hits them in the pocketbook. Parents are needed to stand up against these institutions that are undermining our country and destroying the minds of our children. Thankfully, some parents are beginning to see these things and in turn removing their children from public schools and moving their children into private schools. They're also taking the dollars with them. Remember, it is your school choice. United we stand, divided we will fall. Thank you today for joining me on Truth. Next week, we'll have Paul Hemphill. He is a U.S. Army retired director with Ingersoll Lockwood. He has a free video and books in regards to the Gettysburg lessons. And he provides a video-oriented storytelling program that generates useful life lessons, and they inspire students to become better persons and better citizens. Demonstrated with only one famous event from America's past. Our American history is being destroyed in schools, have been for years. Math, science have all been manipulated into this BLM controversy. They're hurting our kids in school. I look forward to hearing and speaking with him the end of this week. I'm also meeting with Jody LaDolce on Warriors Rise. I am also looking forward to discussing this also, critical race theory. It is going to be a wonderful event, and I hope to hear and see you all. Thank you. God bless, and God bless America.